Good morning, class. It's time for CRE. We've not done CRE last week, so we'll definitely do it this week. The last time I was here, we learned about social problems and Christian values. We looked at justice, and we learned so much about justice and all the prophets in the Old Testament that were advocating for justice. Today we look at fairness and some of the people in the Bible who are advocating for fairness. So what is fairness? Fairness means treating everybody equally. Is actually treating everybody equally. Remember, you have to be, there are times you do something you're like, that's not fair, because fairness means treating everybody equally. So in the book of Genesis chapter 37, we all know the story of Joseph. We've learned about the story of Joseph since I think we're in class 4. We learned about the story of Joseph, how his brothers were unfair to him, how they sold him off, they were jealous of the fact that Joseph was loved by his father and all that stuff. So they acted unfairly when they sold him to the Ishmaelites. Remember Joseph, after, you all know the story of Joseph, right? After the dad gave him a coat, and, the brothers were very unfair and they decided to sell him off. So fairness is another Christian value. It is actually described as being just and impartial, and it also means doing things according to laid down rules and regulations. What examples of fairness can you give from your school? Or what examples of fairness have you witnessed? For example, in your class, maybe you're learning a theory lesson, and then maybe 5 of you did the work, and then the teacher decides to punish 3 of you and leave out 2. According to you, you will say that the teacher acted unfairly. So your teachers have to treat you equally without favoring some pupils. Again, pupils in a school do not tell lies or steal from one another. When you may have witnessed fairness when pupils do not tell lies or steal from one another. You don't have to tell lies. Like, I remember maybe in class you've not done your homework and you're like, teacher, I left my book at home, and truth of the matter is the book is in your locker. So you should not tell, because when you do that, the teacher will act unfairly at some point. Then pupils in a class share what they have with those who do not have. That's being fair. If you have maybe 4 snacks, around maybe 4 buns, and then there's a people in your class who does not have any, you can share it off. That's being fair. So Joseph, as we were saying, was a son of Jacob, and he had brothers who hated him. So we all know the story of how he went to visit them as they were looking after their sheep. They planned to kill him. Judah suggests that, no, we don't have to kill him. We have to sell him off instead of hurting him. So they decided to sell him off. They agreed to do this and sold Joseph for 20 pieces of silver. I like to imagine that 20 pieces of silver is modern day 20 shillings. So to disguise their action, they killed a goat and dipped Joseph's coat in his blood. They took it to their father and cheated him that Joseph may have been killed by wild animals. His father, of course, was very sad and mourned his son for a long time. In this story, did Joseph's brothers act with fairness? No, they didn't. They didn't act with fairness. They should have, if at all they felt that their father was not fair to them, they should have, talked to him and maybe tried to solve the matter. But in this case, they decided to take the matters into their own hands, and indeed they didn't act fairly to Joseph. So they were also unfair to their father, as they cheated him that Joseph had been killed by wild animals. Remember, Joseph's father, who was Jacob, loved Joseph so much. He really loved Joseph. And of course, when he heard that Joseph had been killed, he became devastated. He became so lonely because he loved his son. So in the book of in modern day gospel, in the book of John, we are told that there was a woman who was caught in adultery. And what is adultery? Adultery is the act of being unfaithful to your partner. In those days, it was actually a very big sin. And that woman was brought to Jesus by the Pharisees and the teachers of the law. They wanted to hear Jesus' opinion, as the law demanded that such a person be put to death by stoning. I wonder, was she sinning alone? Of course not. But in those days, in Jewish society, women were often treated very unfairly. So they brought the woman to Jesus, and they said, the law says that this woman needs to be stoned. And you know what Jesus told them? He looked up and told the Pharisees and the teachers of the law that whoever had not committed any sin should throw the first stone. The one who has never committed any sin should be the first one to stone the woman. And of course, all of them left because all of us have sinned in one way or the other. It's like taking off a speck in another person's eye while you have a log in your own eye. So he bent again to write on the ground, and when he looked up, those who had come to accuse the woman had left. Jesus told the woman, since there was no one to condemn her, he did not condemn her either. So he advised her to go and not to sin again. As we said, in Jewish society, women were often treated unfairly. By forgiving the woman caught in adultery, Jesus was demonstrating that salvation was for all people, even those despised in society. Remember, even nowadays, women tend to be treated unfairly in all aspects of life. And the Bible talks against that everyone should be treated fairly, even those who are despised in society. Whereas the Pharisees and teachers of the law treated the woman unfairly, Jesus treated her fairly. So that brings us to our question: was Jesus' action fair? Was it fair? Send in your comments, because I think he was fair. Those who don't think he was fair, kindly send in your answers. And then, were the people fair for bringing the woman only? Because I believe she wasn't sinning alone. So were they fair for wanting to stone the woman? And in this law that says that whoever was caught committing adultery should be stoned, why not all of them? So send in your questions as well. Send in your answers on that. So Christians should uphold fairness when dealing with other people. We should be considerate to others and help those in need. We should desire to apply Christian principles in our lives. And the first principle, as we said, was justice. The second one is fairness. So what have we learned? That fairness is a Christian value, which means being just and impartial. Impartial is the act of being fair as well. Being just and impartial. Joseph's brothers were unfair to him, and they hated him and sold him to the Ishmaelite traders. And then they were also unfair to their dad. Jesus was fair to the woman who was caught in adultery. And then Christians should be fair in their dealings with all people, and we should desire to apply Christian principles in our lives by being fair to them. So when a Christian practices fairness, he or she is respected by other members of the society. We actually see this, that even in our homes, when our parents act fairly, we actually treat them with respect, and everyone in the society as well gives them the respect that they deserve. Then he or she is trusted and given responsibilities. When people say that indeed you're fair, they will trust you and give you responsibilities. Even in class, when the teacher sees that maybe you're the prefect and you're acting fairly, that teacher will definitely trust you and give you responsibilities. And then he or she is appreciated by God and the members of the society, of course. And then he or she is seen as a role model to other people, also treated fairly by others. Then he or she is promoting God's kingdom between people. Then again, he or she is given a lot of peace and contentment by God. So when you act fairly, or when you act with utmost fairness, you will have all those aspects that we've talked about. So the notes, the topic on fairness was a bit short. The notes will be aired in. So yeah. The next Christian value we look at is honesty and integrity. I'll combine both of them. We have honesty and integrity. So what is honesty? Honesty means being truthful always. Honesty means being truthful always. And in our book of primary theory, book 8, we'll read a short text about honesty and integrity, page 107. You can read with me. Emodo works as a houseboy for Mr. Ikal, a rich businessman in Busia town. One day, as he washed Mr. Ikal's clothes, he discovered 1,000 shillings in one of the shirt's pockets. Emodo removed the money and put it in an envelope. When Mr. Ikal returned home in the evening after work, Emodo gave him the envelope. He told Mr. Ikal that he had found the money in one of the pockets as he washed clothes that morning. Mr. Ikal was overjoyed to receive the money back. He was also impressed with the model's honesty. He promised to increase the model's salary by the end of that month. So if you are a model, will you have returned that money to Mr. Ikal? Definitely some of you are saying, no, we can't. Actually, that translates to what happened at my house the other day. As my house help was washing my clothes, she found some money in my trousers. And truth of the matter is, she actually gave the money back. So definitely, as the employer, if you find such honest and guys who have integrity as such, definitely they will earn your trust, and you will also give them some favors. So Imodo did what he did because he was honest and had integrity. Honesty and integrity are two words that refer to moral uprightness, of being trustworthy and sincere. People who are honest have integrity. They are just and fair in their behavior. All right. So in the Bible, we all know the story of Elisha and Gehazi. Remember, Gehazi and Elisha. You know, there was a king. There was a guy who was called Naaman, and he had leprosy. And then there was Naaman had an Israelite house help or something. So she told Naaman that, hey, there's a guy who I know of and he can help you get cured. So indeed, Naaman went to Elisha, and Elisha gave him the instructions. And indeed, after he followed them, Naaman got cured. And after he got cured, he decided to give Elisha some presents. And Gehazi was given Elisha refused and said, Apana, I don't want your presents. I was only doing what is actually wanted of me. But Gehazi took back the presents. Akamwambia, Apana, amesema unipatie. And indeed, that is not integrity. So, because Naaman lacked integrity, he actually inherited the leprosy that Naaman had. Imagine, Gehazi lacked integrity, and so he inherited the leprosy that Naaman had. So in the book of Ecclesiastes chapter 7 verse 7, it tells us that a bribe corrupts the heart. A bribe corrupts the heart. And then in the book of Matthew 22:16, the Pharisees recognized Jesus as a man of integrity for telling the truth and not being swayed by other people. So as Christians, people who are honest have integrity. They are just and fair in their behavior. Why should we be honest and have integrity? As we've seen, kwamba we should be honest and have integrity because God has commanded us not to cheat. God wants us to do what is right and fair, and we should show love to other people and respect them and their property. Then we should also be trustworthy and sincere when dealing with other people. Then when we are honest, we can be trusted by other people. So that story of this guy called the model and the boss, the guy found a note of 1,000 shillings, and indeed he gave back the money. So how many of us today, modern day world, can find something that does not belong to them and indeed give back to the owner? So we should always practice integrity and honesty. How many of you can indeed stand to be counted as guys with integrity and who are honest? Food for thought. So keep it here. Good. We've looked at the Christian values. Remember, the topic was social problems and Christian values. We've looked at the Christian values. Number 1 was justice, 2 fairness, 3 honesty, and then integrity. Now we're going to look at the social problems. And the first problem we'll look at is called nepotism. Ever heard of nepotism? Well, nepotism is the act of favoring one's relatives, especially in the environment in the work environment. So listen to this short text. Bernard is a civil servant and works in the personnel department. He has 8 employees who work under his supervision. Everybody in the department is aware that Bernard favors 3 employees who come from his ethnic community. He gives them opportunities for further studies and to work outside their stations so that they can get allowances. Bernard's behavior has created problems in his department as other employees feel sidelined. They no longer respect him as a manager and their output at work is low. There is also poor communication among employees and teamwork is lacking. Bernard is aware that his actions are hurting some of his employees, but he does not care. He seems to be committed to helping only those who come from his community and are related to him in any other way. Bernard is an example of guys who practice nepotism. Nepotism refers to favorism shown to relatives in giving them more privileges than other people. What kind of problems do you think can arise due to nepotism? So let's take an example of, let's assume that this is a company. Then the owner of the company is the dad. The head teacher is the son. The deputy head teacher is the wife to the son. The secretary is the uncle. Relatives working in one place. And that will actually make the other employees who are not related to the bosses, as we've seen in the story, there will be poor communication from employees and teamwork is lacking. That is what we call nepotism, favoring your own relatives, mostly relatives who are or guys who are related to work in the same area. So issues or problems that can arise due to nepotism are like lack of friendship among people, because let's assume that indeed you're working with a group of maybe 6 people who are all related. Of course there will be lack of friendship because you cannot befriend someone, your fellow employee, and he or she is the cousin to the boss, and we know what will happen after that. Then bitterness and rivalry among others. Definitely there will be bitterness because guys will think that huyu juu ni cousin ya boss, definitely akona favors. There's that act of bitterness and rivalry. Rivalry is the act of mnakosana tu, mkona modern day motto na each other. Then lack of love and concern for one another. Since you know that so and so is the cousin of the boss, no, there will be no love, there will be no concern. And then frustration that may lead to illness. Remember, at the workplace, if you're so frustrated, definitely you're likely to sink into depression. Then there is lack of teamwork. If 3 or 4 employees are relatives, do you think there will be teamwork? Apana, because these 4 relatives will feel wako huko juu because the bosses ni wao. So there will definitely be lack of teamwork. Then people will become enemies and fail to respect one another. I'm sure you've seen that. People will be enemies because mnasema, huyu ndiye anasema, and definitely there will be no respect. So they will fail to respect one another. Then there will be poor work output because as we've seen, there will be no teamwork. So definitely there will be poor work output. So Christians should not practice nepotism. Make sure you have as many outsiders as possible, because wanasemanga, when you have guys who are working for you and your relatives, hapo itakuwa makosa. So nepotism in the book of Matthew, we've seen nepotism there in the book of Matthew chapter 12 verse 46 to 50. Jesus taught that all those who do his will are his brothers and sisters. Kusema sijui fulani ni brother yangu, but alisema everyone who does my will is my neighbor or my relative. So nepotism leads to disunity between workers and other members of the society. Since so and so is related to the boss, then definitely there will be disunity. There will be infighting between workers, hatred between workers and other people, laziness and lack of motivation between workers, low production, and may lead to losses by companies and institutions. Since guys are not working companies and institutions, then there will be promotion of corruption, which promotes injustice. Then there'll be mismanagement of resources in a company or institution, leading to loss of jobs. Since the boss is my uncle, na mimi ameniweka kwa nini ya pesa, so definitely I'll use it as I want. So there'll be mismanagement of resources in a company or institution, leading to loss of jobs. So please, kindly, as Christians, we should not practice nepotism, especially in our places of work. And then the next social problem is tribalism. Tribalism is the act of favoring members of your own tribe. Mkubwa Mkikuyu, manager Mkikuyu, head teacher Mkikuyu, senior teacher Mkikuyu, gateman Mkikuyu, walimu wote ni Wakikuyu, drivers Wakikuyu. That is the act of favoring your own members of your tribe. And in Kenya nowadays, I hear that if you go to an office, alafu unaulizwa what's your name, kama boss anaitwa, let me take an example, boss anaitwa Karanja, then you go there and you say your name is Onyango, my friend, hautapata kazi, just because your name is not related to the boss's tribe. So this is the act of favoring members of your own tribe, whereby tribalism is also referred to as ethnicity. It is the practice of showing favors and giving special privileges to people of your tribe or ethnic community. In Kenya, tribalism is a common social problem and is practiced in many organizations and institutions. Just last week, I saw guys complaining that today's government, kutoka mkubwa, President Mkikuyu, Chief of Defense Forces Mkikuyu, mkubwa Central Bank Mkikuyu, mkubwa KPLC Mkikuyu, stream mkubwa, the guys were aligning that indeed Kenya is a state that is full of tribalism. What type of tribalism do you know? Tribalism is observed when, for example, a manager in an organization employs, promotes, and is kind to people of his or her own ethnic community. Kama we si Mkikuyu na mimi ndio boss, I'm Masai, so let's say I'm a boss here, and then definitely wewe si Masai, then you come wanting some favors, sitakupea just because your name is not Nailantei or is not Milanoi. I will not give you any favor, I'll not grant you any favor. So this is a manager in an organization employs or promotes other people or kind to people who belong to his own ethnic community. Also, when people are denied their rights or just because they come from another ethnic community. Kama usi Mkikuyu sitakupatia right fulani. Hata ukienda kwa polisi, I remember I was told that the reason why we have so many, no offense meant, the reason why we have so many guys who are Kalenjin and they're policemen, no offense meant for Kalenjins, is because during the Moi era, guys were told twendeni, and then most of them were chosen to be policemen. That's why we have attacks in their police ikatokea that police ni mkale tu. So I don't know how true that is, but I hear it happened. So what makes people practice tribalism? People usually practice tribalism because they do not trust other people from other communities. That's because you're Luo. You don't believe that unaweza fanyiwa kazi na Kikuyu ama Luo ama or anything else. You don't believe in that because you believe in guys coming from your own community. So tribalism is also a sin, for it causes bitterness, pain and suffering to the victims. It also hinders personal growth and fulfillment. Trust me, when you see a company, definitely when you practice tribalism, nepotism must be involved there. So these two go hand in hand. So we also saw tribalism in the Bible in the book of John, chapter 4, verse 5 to 10, whereby Jesus was in a town called Samaria, and then Jesus was tired, and therefore he sat by Jacob's well at around midday. His disciples had gone to buy some food in town. While he sat there, a Samaritan woman came to draw some water. Jesus asked her to give him some water. The woman was astonished by his request because Jesus was a Jew while she was a Samaritan. Jews and Samaritans did not have anything in common and had vowed not to share anything. It was also against Jewish customs for a man to talk to a woman in public. It was against Jewish customs for a man to talk to a woman in public. So Jesus told her that if only she knew what God gives and who it is that was asking for water, she would grant that request. She would also ask Jesus to give her life-giving water. Why do you think Jesus held a conversation with a Samaritan woman? This was to show his followers that he did not discriminate against others on the basis of their tribe or ethnic ground. He also taught that he came for all people regardless of their background. So that's where that's the one point in the Bible whereby Jesus shunned tribalism. So tribalism, as what we've learned, is tribalism is the practice of according favors and privileges to people who come from one's tribe or ethnic background. Tribalism is a social problem and destroys good relationships among people. Also, it causes hatred and confusion among people. Then Jews and Samaritans hated one another, yet Jesus asked for water from a Samaritan. So Christians should use the Christian value of justice and fairness when dealing with tribalism and other social problems. We should also follow the example of Jesus in loving others as God's children. Then the other social problem is corruption. I'm sure we've all heard of corruption. Since we were born to make corruption. We've been hearing of corruption. What is corruption? This is the act of being dishonest. Or more detailed, is this the act of being dishonest and engaging in illegal behavior, especially by people with power. Corruption is an act of being dishonest. It is an illegal practice that is carried on in many countries of the world. Corruption involves offering and accepting bribes. I'm sure at one point in life, all of us have witnessed corruption. Kwa hii barabara tu. Find that wewe ni dereva wa matatu, gari yako haina anything. Then unapatana na polisi kwa barabara, what you give them? 50 bob, and then you're good to go. Nambasa uende nyumbani, you're good to go. So a bribe is money or service offered to somebody in return of a favor. You want something? You want me to do something for you? Give me money, or give me offer me something instead. Corruption in the society has negative effects. What encourages corruption? The following are some of the reasons people practice corruption. So the reasons why people create or practice corruption is: 1, greed and selfishness. Greed and selfishness leads to corruption. Maybe you're being paid, you're a policeman, you're being paid maybe an amount of 30,000 shillings, and then you're like 30,000 haitoshi. So you want to get something extra. So unaenda kwa barabara unasimama hapo. Na mostly unasimamanga end month. At the end of the month, kutoka tarehe 25 hapo you'll find them on the road. So unasimama hapo kwa barabara ukingoja. So every gari inapita hapo, you get your 50 bob. So if you get like 20 cars per day or 500 cars per day, that's of course good money that will add to your salary. So greed and selfishness. Also, the wish to become rich quickly. This is the wish to become rich quickly. Guys nowadays don't want to work. They want money haraka, pesa haraka. So you will be forced to practice corruption. Then laziness. This comes hand in hand with guys who want to become rich quickly. Then poverty. Poverty may also lead to you practicing corruption. Then unemployment. Now, right now in Kenya, we have the highest unemployment rate I think the country has ever witnessed. Remember, COVID came and guys were laid off from their job, their workplaces. Some offices closed down. Very many things happened. So unemployment will definitely lead to corruption. Then lack of discipline among people. You're not disciplined, so definitely come you want a favor, especially in these government offices. Ukienda kwa office ya government, maybe you lost your ID. So lazima utoe kitu. They're like, hapana, wewe toa pesa ya ink. So you have to give maybe 100 bob or something to be able to get your service. So in the Bible, again, the book of Luke chapter 19, verse 1 to 10, there was a guy called Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was very wealthy and corrupt. Watu wa kanju wanakuanga na pesa and they're very corrupt. So Zacchaeus, after Jesus stuff akaenda kamwona kwa mti or stuff, kamwambia, you know what, I'll give half of my possessions to the poor, and that if he cheated anybody or anything, he'll pay back 4 times. So effects of corruption in the society are: 1, hindering development in the community. 2, creating disunity between people. Hindering development in the community. Let's assume that barabara ya Ngong to Kiserian, maybe the government imeona it needs to tarmac the road. Inapeana like 2 billion. let's say 2 billion, barabara itengenezwe. So hiyo pesa ikiingia kwa mfuko ya MP atasema ni pesa ngapi imepeanwa? 1 billion. 1 billion semeficha. Ape huyo whatever, you know, kuna chain, kuna protocol. Watu wote by the time inafika kwa contractor ampata kama 500 million. Ikiteremka hivyo hata mwenye saa jenga anasema hata amepewa 100 million. Take this case for example in your home. Hapa nyumbani uambue teacher niambie, no, let's say we come up with a trip for class 8. Director aseme trip ni 1000. Ambie head teacher, no, let's say 2000. Head teacher kuja niambie, teacher tunaenda trip. Go tell the pupils kwamba nimesema 2000, so enda waambie watoto trip ni 2500. Kwa watoto naambia tunaenda trip kesho ni 3000. Wewe ukienda nyumbani utasema 3000, utaenda useme nini? Tunaenda trip na tumeambiwa tutoe 4000. So imagine hiyo chenye yote, by the time your parents get the information trip ni 4000, akupatia wewe uko na fare yako kwa mfuko uweke kuje, you know, hiyo chain inaenda hivyo, and that is what we call corruption. So it also creates disunity between people. Then it also promotes hatred, which leads to fight between people in the society. Then hindering peaceful coexistence of different tribes in the society. Then promoting an equal distribution of resources. Then promoting mismanagement of resources, leading to low production by companies. Then closure of companies and institutions due to mismanaged resources, leading to loss of jobs. Then promoting poverty as resources are not shared equally. Then increase in crime, especially when our law enforcers are compromised. Ukipeleka kesi yako huko kwa polisi and then maybe you're battling it out against a certain person who is richer than you. Do you think justice will be served? I don't think so, because now that will increase crime, especially where our law enforcers are compromised. Corruption is evil. Do not practice corruption. So in our next topic, we look at mismanagement of resources as a social problem as well, and then how to uphold Christian values in our next topic, in our next subtopic, and then that will be the end of our topic.